Good afternoon, ESRI UC planners. I just thought that I would give you my presentation demonstration via video because honestly it's faster for me to record it than it is for me to write down everything I would say. So feel free to use this as a demonstration of what I will be presenting on Thursday during my time block. Fair warning, not everything is going to be exactly word for word what I say on the video because I don't necessarily read off of cards, but it will be fairly close. So we'll go ahead and start with the PowerPoint. And basically I have gone ahead and designed that. And we'll go ahead and get started. So, hi, my name's DCarey. I'm the Emergency Manager for Yolo County, California. Welcome to using GIS to estimate jurisdictional damages and create a common operating picture. But first things first, we're going to have kind of an interactive software demo towards the end of this presentation. So while you're listening to kind of my preface on our project, please feel free to go online to your app store and download a QR code reader and the Survey 123 app if you'd like to participate in the software demonstration towards the end. So you get several slides to accomplish that while I'm talking here. So basically, disasters happen. We know that they happen. They happen all over the world. Obviously, my focus is Yolo County, California. Here's just some of the things that California in general, as well as my own jurisdiction, has been dealing with recently. You can see a lovely fire picture from up in our Capay Valley. That was fire coming over the top of one of our taller ridges. You can see one of our low water crossings in the middle there, completely flooded out. It's actually designed to do that, but during the 2017 storms, the entire road was underwater for at least a month or so. All the way over to the right-hand side of the screen, you can see one of our dirt country roads that are up in our canyons completely washed out during the storm. So basically just the drainage ditch and pipe are left there. And then just two more pictures on the bottom there to remind us about the California mudslides down in Santa Barbara, and of course the wildland fire in Santa Rosa. I'm sure most of you guys in the room saw something on the news when some of these things were happening. So when we have all of this happen, one of the key focuses of emergency management is to gather as much data as possible on the damaged areas, how much they're going to cost to repair, and it's a very extensive process that we go through with all the jurisdictional partners in order to relay that information up to FEMA. Why is it so difficult? Why do we need a specialized tool in order to do this? Well, let's take a look at it. Here's my county, Yolo County. The blue areas that you see are tribally owned parcels. If I go forward a little bit, you can see reclamation district boundaries all the way along the Sacramento River on the east side of my county. Now, if we add the cities on top of that in the kind of dark maroon color, you can see their jurisdictional boundaries. Notice how some of them cross over into the reclamation district boundaries. Or here, how about if we add the water district boundaries? Notice how many of those are overlaying other jurisdictional boundaries. And then if I add on all of the different crops throughout the county, because any of our crops can be damaged, you can see how many areas those fall into. And finally, we color in the rest of my county by simply turning on a fire district boundary layer. And you can see that some of these districts even go outside of my county line on the northeast there, the kind of southwest that goes into Solano County. What's interesting is when we're talking about damages, FEMA wants the county to do a proclamation. Even if all of these different jurisdictions proclaim from themselves, really the county has to do that proclamation, ask for the governor's concurrence, ask for a presidential declaration, and the county is really the one that needs to get into that presidential declaration and be recognized by name for all of these other districts to be able to report their damages and try to get a certain grant program we call public assistance back to help them recover and rebuild after a disaster. So even if each of them is reporting their individual damages, unless we can get the county as a whole into that program, they can't go after those recovery dollars. So it's really important that no matter where in the county a damage is or who owns it, whose responsibility it is, it all kind of gets conglomerated together as one larger picture. So in 2017, we actually had already thought about needing a field type of tool in order to capture some of this data, because it's just really, really hard to do it via phone or even radio. So we launched a geoform, very simple, had a space for a picture, a couple other lines of text, just to see if the field workers would even like it or use it. So you can see here all the purple dots were all actual damages that were reported during the storms, things like erosion up on one of our levees. Here's another piece of erosion along the Sacramento River. This is actually an area next to one of our busiest roads that's falling into the river, also from erosion. And then we had levee slips, which actually can make the levee in danger of failing along one of our most highly flooded areas called the Yolo Bypass. So we were capturing all this data way back then with something a little bit more rudimentary than what we have now. So from lessons learned and everything, we realized a lot of things that we needed to improve upon, and that brought us to a new damage assessment. So the new damage assessment vision that we gave to ESRI under an Enterprise Advantage program contract was that we wanted to be able to collect all the information at the field level, have it all be in one uniform place that we can either share directly with our state partners like DWR, Cal OES, pretty much anybody that would be helping us recover, or we can push that data out into separate viewing applications, impact summary applications, dashboards, in order to share the specific pieces of the master data set that different people want to look at. So when we go ahead and look at how our Survey 123 is built, the entire thing is built on logic. We kind of design the logic so that ESRI could help us program the Survey 123. We broke it into, as you can see here, 7 major categories. We feel like most things could be reported under any one of these categories. And once somebody starts using a category, then the logic actually breaks out even farther and starts asking them more questions, just to try to capture as much data as we could think of. Anything we might want to know in the future, anything that's a FEMA rule or a USDA rule, anything like that that we could think of, we tried to program into this logic. So what that gives us is actually a suite of applications. And so this is where I'd like to transfer away from the PowerPoint and kind of show you guys how this damage assessment suite works. So feel free, I know I started at the beginning of the presentation that if you wanted to participate, you need a QR code scanner in Survey 123 app. This is the QR that you want to scan. So if you want to participate from your seat, go ahead and scan this. It's going to actually send you to our Survey 123 application. So if I go ahead and open up our Survey 123 application, give myself a little bit of a white background here. This is what it's going to look like on your phone. So obviously it's very simplistic. It asks for a name. Almost everything in here is free text. Nothing is a mandated field. That way people don't get frustrated and stop using it because they can't get it to send. We chose Survey 123 because of its ability to be opened kind of URL-wise to anybody, not have a named user license to be able to use it. We have thousands of people potentially reporting damages. So we need everybody to be able to use it, whether they're actually on GIS or not. But those people who do have named user accounts, it can be shared with their account so they can log in and it'll be right there under their login. The first encounter of the logic is under the type of damage, and I'm going to use building here. Feel free at your seat to use any of the types of damage. We're going to delete all your data after the presentation's over anyway. And under this whole resource or type of debris, now the logic starts changing based on the type of damage that we've requested to report on. So here, since I'm reporting damages on buildings, it's going to ask me for a publicly owned, a privately owned, or a residence. If I go ahead and click publicly owned, it has even more logic that's been open at the bottom that I'll show you here. Obviously, it's geolocating where my device is sitting, but you can also move that pin around, place it wherever you need to be in case you're doing this at a computer terminal instead of out in the field. It's asking you for simple things like where is the building, the address, and things like that. That's pretty much on all of the building logics. But then here we get to the publicly owned facility side, because that's what I had selected. It wants the name of the facility, probably like the common name, like the administration building, something like that. Who owns it? Here in emergency management, we want to know if it's providing a public service that we need to make sure we move. So that's what we call continuity planning. If I answer yes to that, it starts asking me questions about whether the continuity plan for that facility has been activated. That way we know that they kind of know what they're doing, that they have to move, or they might need our assistance out of emergency management moving their operations. Then we move on to, has the building been inspected yet? If they answer no, then on our maps it shows up as a gray dot that's still pending inspection. If they say yes, then we start having did it receive a red, yellow, or green tag? So I can choose whichever tagging category it got during inspection. I can attach photos directly from my device, upload files. I can provide comments. We always put in a free text cell. That way, if somebody wants to tell us something we didn't pre-plan for, they can go ahead and put it in here. And then we're going to go ahead and just click this little green checkbox. And what that does is it asks us if we want to send it later, which is caching it in the device's memory in case you're not on cell signal. We have a lot of areas in our unincorporated properties that don't have really reliable cell signal, or we can send it now to go ahead and push that to the map. So it'll go ahead and push everything that I filled out, whether I left it blank or not, and now it moves into part of our process workflow that we've designed specifically for the Emergency Operations Center level. So up at the Emergency Operations Center, the second program we have, so Survey 123 is the first one. The second one is this Damage Assessment Editor. This is really designed for somebody sitting at a desk to fact check, quality control, anything that's being reported. So any of these dots, they're kind of all demo dots at the moment. I've only got about 3 actual reports right here, but any of these demo dots I can actually go into and see what that dot says as long as I have the Smart Editor on, which is the panel that you see right there on the right hand side. So the Smart Editor will actually open up all of that dot's typable fields. It'll make it so that I can change any of the information here. And then it will also have extra categories that we don't ask the field representatives. We don't ask them how much it's going to cost to repair the building because we honestly assume that they don't know that kind of while they're out there looking at it. We can guess that information from assessor's parcel files, insurance values, things of that nature. So here at the EOC, we can put this amount in, and then we'll note that we verified it. If that piece of damage is part of a specialty federal program, we can also assign that category to it, just more for filtering and information gathering pieces. We'll want to design a FEMA public assistance category to it if one doesn't auto-populate. Some of the logic built out, like if you were to say put in a road damage report, it's automatically going to come up as the FEMA roads category, but some are not as straightforward, so the EOC may have to double check that. Once they have checked all this information, they'll hit the save button, and then it's now changed on that dot. You can also use the editor in here to add dots manually if somebody phones in a report instead of using the app. And you can use the filters as part of the damage assessment editor to weed out whether something doesn't have damage amounts. So if I turn on the blank damage amount filter, I only see the dots that still need to have amounts assigned to them, because that's the ultimate goal, is to get a dollar value on every single dot and make sure that the EOC has verified every single dot. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an EOC. It can be a departmental operations center. It can be a large engineering firm verifying their dots. You can really farm this work out as long as they have ESRI named user accounts, because the editor is much more secure than the Survey 123 application. Once you go through this process, some of the tools that we've programmed after that have been dashboards, really to condense that data, make sure that we can see a snapshot any time of the day or night. So if you look here, I actually have no data in the viewable map space, so everything looks blank and 0. But if I were to drag my viewable map space over to the center, then more dots start appearing here, and what's going to happen to the widgets is they're going to start auto-calculating based on the dots that are in the viewable map space. So now I can see that I have 3 building reports, 1 farm and ranch, 3 that are undefined at the moment. That means they don't actually have a category. Maybe they came in as other, or they were incomplete. So we'll definitely want to be checking those 3 undefined ones. It's giving me the total dollar value of damage throughout the viewable map space. In my case right now, it's the county. So that's one of the first questions FEMA asks us. What is your initial damage estimate? What's the dollar value that's been damaged? And they are looking for one number, really. So right here, we have a quick view of that we can give them any time of the day or night that they ask. We can go ahead and turn on other layers in the program that are specific to 2 FEMA programs. One I mentioned before was called Public Assistance. The other one's called Individual Assistance. And now it's taking that same data and condensing and analyzing it based on those rules. So only 2 of the dots actually qualify for individual assistance, where 11 are potentially public assistance. It's even categorizing those based on FEMA public assistance categories. So obviously there's 4 dots here that we would want to check because they don't have categories assigned at the moment. So it's just a way for you to really condense this data down, give people the information they need at the drop of a hat. This dashboard is viewing all of the information from Survey 123, but we've also created dashboards that are specific to subsets of data. So for instance, the next dashboard that I'm going to show you is created specifically for, say, a chief building official or a building department. So it doesn't look at any of the ag data, the water conveyance data. It's only looking at that building data that I was showing you on the purple logic kind of build out. So this is showing our chief building official how many buildings have been red tagged, how many have been yellow and green tagged, how many are residential versus publicly owned. It'll actually expand under the info summary to show those tag numbers and even show more information about them, like their actual physical address and things like that. Right here under the publicly owned facilities, it'll expand as well. That's the way the info summary widget works, and it does kind of the same thing, and where it'll keep breaking out that information so you can see it in a snapshot. So that's really our damage assessment suite in a nutshell. This is the point during my presentation that I'm hoping some people in the audience have actually tried it, so maybe the numbers are changing while I'm presenting, things of that nature, and I want to be sure that I leave myself enough time for questions. So that's just a very kind of shortened version of my presentation so that you can see what I intend on doing at the Users Conference. And if you have any suggestions or anything, just feel free to send them on over, and I will incorporate that into the presentation. So that